Good morning and welcome to today's investor webinar presented by Lincoln Minerals. This morning, Lincoln confirmed multiple high-priority copper and base metal drill targets at its Minbrie project in South Australia, following extensive 3D modelling, relogging of historic core, and over 340 new assays. To tell us more, we're pleased to be joined by Lincoln's Chief Executive Officer, Jonathan Tuatha, and Non-Executive Director, Julian Barbazzi. If you have any questions during the webinar, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom and we'll do our best to address them during the Q&A. I'll now hand over to Jonathan.
Thank you, Kristen, and welcome. Thank you for joining us today at what is an important time for Lincoln Minerals. What I'll be going through today is describing Minbrie and drill targets and how we got there. And I'll move straight into that. I'll first share my screen. All right, so we'll just go through the normal disclaimers. So Lincoln over the last 18 months has been able to build up 4 separate standalone projects in key commodities, critical mineral commodities. We've got our copper-based metals Minbrie project with our Discovery 192, which is an awesome discovery hole of 29.5 meters at 0.8% copper and great lead and zinc and some silver. And that is what this presentation is mostly about. We've got our graphite. We've finished the PFS in November, a great result of IRR 41%. Startup capex really low, 29, and we believe we can be the first mover advantage because we're surrounded by the infrastructure, we're close to communities, and we can really get that project up and early. At the moment, graphite prices are down. But sentiment is moving up, and we're looking for downstream partners at the moment. With a high purity iron, we believe we've got the best undeveloped asset in South Australia, 1.2 billion tonnes at 26%, upgrading to 58%, and it can produce a DRI product. And why is that important? In Steelmaking contributes 8% of the global's carbon emissions. Everyone's trying to get that down to 2 or 0 in best through the use of arc furnaces. Now, arc furnaces need DRI, a high purity product. There's only 5% of the world's mines that do that product, and we're one of them. So we're really excited about that, but it requires a big partner, so we're looking for a partner there. And we've got some great ground on Eyre Peninsula, which is an emerging uranium province, with Jungle Dam near Alligator Energy, which is a paleo channel, and we're building a drill ready story there, and some carnite found in a quarry. But the main thing we're talking about, the other one is we've got our key advantage, I believe, is we're surrounded by infrastructure. I mean, we've got 132 kV within 6 kilometres of most of our projects. We've got a selection of ports that are near. The water is being solved at the moment with the desal plant, and we do have options for groundwater. So all the major infrastructure is close, and that really makes us our projects competitive. So we're here to talk about drill hole targeting, and we're targeting our high quality results at our traps. So Minbrie's got all the right ingredients for a major discovery. It's located in South Australian Gawler Creighton, which is home of Olympic Dam, Carrapateena, Prominent Hill, big mineral systems. We've actually got we're settling on a Archean VMS style with hydrothermal alterations, which is slightly different, but it's still a big system. They're similar to Rosebery and Granny Smith. So we've got the Kalanjara shear zone, which if you've got these mantle tapping shear zones that allow the fluid to go up, with metal impregnated fluid to come up, that's a great start. And the Archean, the Kooyindu is the oldest rocks in South Australia. It's 3.1 billion. It's had all that time to be deformed and the fluids to flow and form traps and concentrate. So we've got a great trap zones and chances for the fluids to concentrate. Looking just at the resource, we've got over 7 k's of strike, which is shows that we're in a big system, mineralized system. It's shallow at depth. We've got 20 meters to up to 100 meters of cover, depending on where we are. And it's also 200 meters below surface, so it's open pittable. We've got lots of drill results, geochem data, and geophysics. Now, that's mostly on the magnetite, which sits above the ore body, the mineralized zones that we're targeting. But we're still leveraging a lot of information from that. And we've got the amazing economic equivalent of 29 meters at 0.8% copper, 7.5% lead and zinc. So that's showing that we're in a strong mineralization system. Now Minbrie in Lowe shouldn't have been discovered. It was an iron ore project run by Centrex. They only had the rights for the iron ore. Lincoln had the rights for every other metal. Centrex was doing its bungalow feasibility study. They had 3 rigs running. Normally, the rule was that they drill through the contact of the BIF, the end of the ore body, and they drill for another 2 meters. If it was night shift, then they drilled until the geologist came. Well, there were 3 rigs on night shift. They were drilling. They hit the BIF contact, and they just kept drilling. And then the geologist came along and said, "Oh, wow!" They looked at the sulfides and got so excited. They said, "Keep drilling," which there was no economic value to Centrex. And then they drilled for another 3 shifts, and that's how we got the discovery hole. Now, Lincoln at the time was focused on graphite. It came along. Copper wasn't that hot. It had a little bit of a look, but said, "No, we'll focus on the graphite." And then effectively the hole got forgotten until December last year when we re-announced it. So potential source, we've got, as I said, we've got that potential source. We've got the Hildebrand granites, which is the sources of Olympic Dam, Prominent Hill and Carrapateena. We've got local mafic units, Kimber granites and the Kooyindu formation. And we've also got some meta sediments, which could be the lead and zinc silver. So we've got the sources, we've got transport as the Kalanjara shear zone and all that crustal folding. And then we've got the traps. Now, traps are the chemicals. You've got the dolomites and the marmites and the marbles and calc-silicates. And then you've also got dilation points where just think of a river coming into a big lake and they drop the metal. So we've got 2 target zones. I'll only be talking about the ones today about the Bud 192, which is to the north of the diagram, and it's just the second one down. And we're going to be testing the up dip and down dip along strike, and the oxide supergene zone. So we've got a concept map for us to help explain things. So you'll see there, you've got the Hildebrand granites and the Kimber granites to the left, and then you've got these shear zones. So where Bud 192 is between the magnetite BIF trap zone 1, between the magnetite BIF and that myelinite shear zone. That's where it's sitting, and we'll be targeting that. And then you've got the trap zone 2, which is no one's tested for oxide or supergene, and that's and we'll be testing for that as well. Trap zone 3 is where you've got the large fault zones intersecting, creating a dilation point where minerals can drop out, where we've just got the assays back from that, and we'll be announcing those target zones. So we've been working hard, so in February we just had simple cross sections. As you can see, the left. By June we've got this complex 3D model, mostly working off the incorporating the reassays, and also the new fresh core and the re-logging we've done. So we're building up a really good complex model, which is helping with our targeting. And that value on that cannot be, I think they spent $20 million on this project. That's part of the value. Awesome team. I mean, I've got Justin Gum. Now he's a boffin effectively in my point of view, and he knows the SEDEX, he knows the Gawler Creighton. Very lucky to have him. We're also lucky to have Shane O'Connell. He was ex-chief geologist at Olympic Dam and also worked in Western Australia. But he actually loves the tools, so we're lucky he's decided to come back and do work on the tools, and he's our modeler. John Parker, who was the MD at Lincoln Minerals. So John did his PhD in this area. So lots of knowledge about the Peninsula. And then we got Shannon Pope, who is our internal geologist, and she's really amazing and the glue that holds us together. So I've got a great team working on this, and they're producing great results. We've already identified 4 separate systems over time. This will help us on whether it's a SEDEX or a VMS model. As I said, we've chosen Archean VMS model at the moment. And the Mines Department are doing chronological data on that. So in the coming months, we'll have a better handle on when these mineralizations events happened. And that'll really aid us in our targeting. So we've done a lot. We've done 325 core samples. We had 75, which goes into these targeting areas. We've just received 250 back, which I'll talk about shortly. Now, there's only one hole that we went through what we believe is the main target zone. That's 192. That's 29.5 meters at 0.8. Most of the other assays are just above what we believe the target. So it's just gone through the BIF and didn't penetrate what we believe is the main target zone. So we've got, and here's an example of the mineralization to the left, a bit of core. It's really helpful for us in our design, but it doesn't turn into great assays when you break up 0.5 meter and dilute that. But it's been important in incorporating it into our model. Also, it shows that there is 3, and we've just got another 4th hole from the last assay, showing that once you pass a BIF, there is a mineralized sort of halo above that we're picking up, and is showing some continuity. So with the drilling area targets, you can see that myelinite shear. This is around Budnite 1-2. We're going to be testing 192, and down the bottom you've got that Bud 30. That's got ender hole. It's got that bornite. It's represented better with PXRF to show that there is mineralization. And it's got that same formation as you're coming in as 192. So if they'd only drilled another 4 or 5 meters, there could be a great story, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to extend that hole. We're going to step out an extra 50 meters, and then we're also going to at the top. We're going to test that oxide, and also go and see whether it's open at the top. So that's the plans. There's another 2 drill holes planned as well, but these are the 3 most important in my mind. Now, they've got another target area 2 k's north around 20A, and that's targeting the major shear zones. And we've just got the assays back. They're looking good. They're reaffirming our model around the Katunga dolomite and the shears, and we'll be announcing that in the next couple of weeks. And that'll firm up our drill targets for that one. So finalising our drill holes for that 20A. Permitting, we're nearly about to lodge our permitting, and that'll take a month or two. We've got to select and mobilise our driller, and the plan is to drill this half of this year. So exciting times, and yeah, I can't wait until I see the results and prove up this mineralisation. Just finishing, we've got multiple catalysts across our projects. The drilling and testing our traps, as we've just talked about. The graphite, there's a couple of things. Whyalla Port is potentially, the South Australian government has taken that over, and it's potential open port. There's potential for quad trucks to be put onto the Eyre Peninsula. So we're doing some logistic studies on how that would change the dynamics. It costs $110 a tonne for our logistic costs. If we can get that down, then that improves already a great project. We're aiming to complete our BAM scoping study by the end of the year, and we're in strategic discussions to find a partner. Uranium, we're looking at infill drilling, planning at Jungle Dam, the paleo channels, and we're following up that surface carnite mineralisation. That's less of a priority, but it's still a nice little project. And then once again, if the port of Whyalla is open and we can get quad trucks on, it could be a game changer for the green iron project. So we're doing a desktop. Now, both those desktops are internal use. We're trying to keep it low cost. So it won't be quite JORC ready, but it will help us inform. And we're in the strategic discussions with commercialisation plans. So that's our story. We're looking forward to drilling Minbrie. Thank you.
Thanks, Jonathan. We've got time for a couple of questions. One's come through, Jonathan. It says, Minbrie looks promising. How much drilling do you think it will need to determine its potential?
So we've got 12 kilometres. So, but right now, it's a stage by stage. Our first stage is to prove continuity around the 192, and then the second, the second stage is to target what is the most attractive areas, those massive shear zones. So those, and that's 2 kilometres away, and that will show continuity. Once we've done that, then depending on how concentrated the ore is, that'll determine the drilling and also the grade. So it's a tough, we're early stage. We've been blessed with a awesome discovery hole where most people have to spend years trying to find it. So I'm reluctant to fully answer that question yet. Let's get these drill holes done.
Okay, thanks, Jonathan. Here's another question. Are there any challenges to getting approval for the drilling or anything that could delay this happening in the next few months?
We don't see any delays. We've got great relationships with the farmers. We've got, it's on farmland. It's straightforward cropping land. So we don't see any reasons for delays.
Okay. Thank you. Julian, a couple of questions that's come through. I might direct them at you if that's okay.
Sure.
First question is, how do you feel the recent change in sentiment of the graphite market will position Lincoln's Kookaburra project for development?
Oh, thanks, Kristen. And my name's Julian Babarczyk, for those who don't know me, and thank you everyone for your interest. I'm a non-executive director of the company, and I've had some experience in the graphite markets in the past. So I think what we've experienced in the last couple of years has been broadly a more challenging graphite outlook. There's been significant supply come on out of China, and then a general slowing from some of the demand sources, particularly EVs being a little slower than what people expected. But I think what we've witnessed in the last 6 to 12 months has been a somewhat a change in sentiment. I think the tariff discussion that's come out of the US in recent times has made people refocus again on supply chain security. And I think the fact that China dominates both refined and also raw graphite, up to 90% of each of those in global output, makes that a riskier bet for many potential customers. So what we've seen in recent times is significant interest from a number of potential end users. And I think generally, as I alluded to, the sentiment is turning somewhat in the graphite space. There's been a period of oversupply that seems to be abating a little bit. And then, like everyone, we're waiting for the eventual rise in graphite prices as the demand from EVs really grows year on year. And so we expect the outlook to be much more positive than what it's been in the recent past. And like any commodity cycle, it's been at a low ebb, and we expect that to change.
Thanks, Julian. And thank you everyone for all the questions coming through. We've got time for one more. Julian, I might direct this one to you if possible. What are Lincoln's funding options to enable it to execute on its various strategic aims over the short, medium, and long term, including the upcoming drilling planned for Minbrie?
Yeah, thanks, Kristen. Look, that's a very pertinent question. As any small junior, it has been a somewhat challenging time in the last couple of years, and we feel like we've been very judicious in the way that we've allocated capital in the company. We undertook a significant cost out program about 6 months ago to reduce our overall burn rate. We've now got the company running on, what we think is, really low cash costs, with additional funding clearly needed ongoing for additional exploration. Because we've got such a diverse asset suite, and we've spent a lot of time articulating what the individual assets are, and Jonathan's just gone through the detail on each of those, mostly the Minbrie asset, but we have specific funding strategies for each of them. We've alluded to strategic potential funding opportunities at a number of the assets, including the graphite project, and we're pleased to say there's some very constructive discussions ongoing with a number of parties with regard to that. We believe the graphite asset we have in South Australia is highly strategic for a number of reasons. It's a prime location on the Eyre Peninsula, which hosts most of the graphite resources in Australia, but also it's one of the prime areas outside of China for potential graphite supply expansion. And we think that could have a very significant role as part of a more US-centric supply chain. So we're fielding a number of discussions with regard to that. And while those discussions are ongoing, we maintain a relatively low spend, but continue to progress that one. Just like the magnetite project, we've got 1.2 billion tonnes of what we believe is the best undeveloped magnetite project in South Australia. We continue to field interest in that as well. By the nature of the interest, it'll take some time to develop that, but those discussions are ongoing. And again, that asset doesn't require a lot of capital to continue going. Minbrie is probably the main one that will require some capital. Again, we've received some inbound interest from that very recently, which is encouraging for us. It demonstrates to us that asset is on the radar. And then I guess in terms of funding that drill program, we have some modest cash at bank, and then we're also being approached by a number of potential funding sources as well that we're having discussions with. So it appears that the asset base that we've been very confident of in the last couple of years that the market hasn't truly rewarded is starting to shine a little bit better. I think there's more of an appreciation for the diversity of our asset base, and I think the attractiveness of some of the high impact opportunities that we're going to be drilling in the coming months. And so our access to capital we feel is as good as it's ever been. And I guess we'll look forward to updating shareholders on the various mix of that strategic or equity capital that we need in the coming months.
Thank you, Julian. Well, thank you everyone for everyone who joined us today. That's all we have time for. A recording of the webinar will soon be made available on Lincoln's website, www.lincolnminerals.com.au. Thank you for your attending.